Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thought Raid, a show where we take on thoughts and find better ways of thinking about them. I'm Brandon Brown, owner of United Gamers Nations and LA counselor, and with me today is... Why are you gone? Oh, there you are. The wonderful Tim didnt of Break the Meta. Hello.
Hey.
And today is Saturday, where we're going to have a specific topic planned for you guys, which I'm excited about because it seems like every topic we go through today and this week is specifically for me. So, yay!
Get ready, Brown.
This week is Let's Chastise Brandon week. But it's okay. It's good. I need stuff like this from time to time. So... anyways, but before we jump into that, I just want to begin with some specific announcements again. I want to remind you guys that tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be going live with a prayer night. So if you have anything specifically that you would like for us to pray about, things going on in your life, if you're going through financial struggles, maybe you're worried about what's going on in the election, whatever, blah, 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 whatever it may be, we're here to pray for that because it all matters to God. And we know that, and we want to be able to just pray with you and just kind of help get to a place of peace and make a difference via prayer. So I want to throw that out there to you guys, but that's the only thing I want to say for right now. Today's topic, like I said, in all of its relevancy to me, is specifically... you're in a conversation, it's not going well... And now,
we're not just a conversation. We're talking about conflict in general.
You're in a conversation. You're in conflict, wherever it may be. You're angry. Now, what the heck do you do? And this is, I don't know. This is just something that's kind of relevant to me because I've been in many different conflicts where I get angry, and I don't know. It's really hard to think rationally through those situations and to speak with clarity and understanding. And I want to talk right then and there because I care. Like, if I get angry at somebody or something, it is not because I just am an angry person. It is because I care about the situation and I want to fix it. I want to do something about it, and it's going in the god-awful direction. And it's got to change it now. And it's just, that's not always going to work. And so this is something that both of us has had to work through, but this week is your week, and so I want to throw this over to you now, Tim. Yeah! To take this topic and to begin to unfold it for us.
Okay, so we're talking about conflict, boys and girls.
Woo!
For the longest time, I thought that conflict was a bad thing. It was a negative thing. It was a thing that tore relationships apart. And usually conflict had something to do with me being a bad person or just overall, like, me not being acceptable, a piece of trash, you know? And I think something that changed for me was understanding, just learning that conflict is how you build relationships. Conflict is essential. Conflict is a part of life. And you shouldn't run away from it.
Oh, yeah.
You know? When you have people in your life or circumstances in your life that make you feel some kind of way, there's a reason it makes you feel some kind of way. Because if you think, like Brandon, you and I might have a disagreement. Like, we had a disagreement last night about something that you're going through and how you're going through it. Now, if there's a guy named Bill who lives in Canada and I've never met him before, if he's going through the same thing, I'm not going to have the same type of visceral response because I don't know the dude. I don't have a relationship with him.
Yeah.
Right? If he goes off the deep end and becomes a heretic and, just starts talking to voices inside his head and all this stuff, it's like, I mean, that sucks, dude, but, we're not exactly leading a podcast together.
Yeah.
Not saying that Brandon's talking to voices in his head or becoming a heretic. I'm not saying that at all, but... things make you upset because they tickle an insecurity that you have that's kind of close to home.
Yeah.
And typically that's related to relationships that you have. I mean, I like to use Facebook as an example for stuff like this all the time because everybody's your friend on Facebook because one of you had said, send friend request, and the other person says accept, and so there's a bond there. And so when somebody has a disagreement or a difference of opinion, and they do something you don't believe in, or vice versa, it's like, what do I do next? Like, this person just said something that absolutely made me livid. I think they're a piece of trash. They made me feel like a piece of trash. Well, what do I do? So that's kind of the basis that we're coming from today. Let me pull up my notes. So I got a couple of steps that I want you guys to consider when you're looking at conflict. Okay. Now, I'm not the best about this, but I like to think that my conflict resolution skills are somewhat decent. It's gotten so much easier for me in the past couple of years to not get upset at people, or to just take what's the word? A removed perspective. There's a D word I'm trying to use, not dislocated, but basically when you remove yourself from the situation, to just have a third person. Thank you. Disassociate myself from the circumstance and think, okay, well, rationally, what is the answer here? What am I supposed to do? Right. And one of the questions that I find myself asking frequently is, what does this relationship mean to me? What does this relationship mean to you? Okay. So you're pissed off. Somebody's done something. You have to just sit back and ask yourself, okay, well, is this relationship worth it? Like, what is it worth? Is it worth, having a slap down, drag out, throw down, whatever type of fight, and, bare your soul to somebody? Are you on that level of commitment with that person to do something like that? Or is it, somebody flipped you off as you're, driving through traffic? It's not really within your realm of commitment to that person to chase them down and say, hey, let's resolve this.
Yeah. I get that a lot. Because
what, people flipping you off in traffic?
Well, no. Fortunately, I don't get that a lot, because typically, like, I try to give everyone else the right of way, where I just kind of sit back and let them go around me. But no, what I mean, like, specifically, like, asking the question, what does this relationship mean to you? Because that's something I've had to define in not this most recent thing that I'm going through, but something that happened about a month or two ago, where I was in just like a debate about something that I feel really strongly about and I've done research about, and it felt like everything that I was specifically, like, talking about was being oh, thank you for following, I appreciate that. Everything that I was saying, there was always something that was wrong about it, and the other person wasn't really considering what I was bringing because of the format of which that came, like, because it wasn't specifically completely devoid of emotion, and it was just a flat out scientific piece, and because it had, like, a backing of emotion to it, it was like, nope, like, I'm just not going to accept this. I'm like, well, you're talking to me about confirmation bias, but yet at the same time, here I'm giving you something that's contrary to what you believe, and you're just rejecting it. It's like who has the confirmation bias going on right now? And so I had to realize, after a while of talking about it, and then repeatedly the person just talking about who I was and taking jabs at my character and stuff out of frustration, I was just like, this is just not worth it. Like, I'm not this committed to this person. We haven't been talking much more beyond that of Facebook, and only at random instances I can't allow my piece to go out the door and engage this person on these matters. I don't really know them that well enough to keep this up. I care about them on a human level, that they're going through something, and I love them because Jesus loves them, but they have no proximity to my heart, and I can't let them get close to my heart by trying to continue to pursue them when they're not even listening to what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of truth in that too, because, for instance, if I'm walking through life and I'm at Haynes Mall or something, and somebody says, dude, you're a slob, you're a horrible representation of what it means to be a Christian. I'm like, dude, you don't even know me. That's okay. And you can identify that it's ignorance and people acting out of their feelings. But if my wife says that, hey, you're a slob and you're a horrible representation of what it means to be a Christian, it's like, what is she seeing? Because
yeah.
Well, you can tell that somebody like that's closer to you has a vested interest typically in your relationship. That's why
Yeah.
you have a relationship, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's really important to figure out what does that relationship mean to you, and honestly, what does the relationship mean to them? You know, how much credence, how much value can you give what they're telling you, and any of the vitriol or argumentativeness or whatever is coming out of them, like how much value do you give that? You
Yeah.
know, um, I think a lot of people get a somewhere along their lives they get a victim mentality and they take everything as an attack. They think the world's out to get them.
Mm.
They think that everybody's against them. They assume that um, people just see so much wrong with them, and they also assume that these people are not correct because they've built up this defense wall, which just negates everything that comes in. Because we're not supposed to be criticized, but we're supposed to receive criticism, correction.
Yeah.
You know, like I am definitely not perfect. Brandon, you are not perfect.
Yeah.
Listener, you are not perfect either.
Sorry.
And that's how you grow and mature. You try, you fail, and you adjust. You're not supposed to go through life with an 80% success rate. You're supposed to fail more than you succeed. That's how you grow. And if you're not failing more than you succeed, you're probably doing something wrong. You know, if all you're doing is succeeding, you're too comfortable.
Yeah.
But when it comes to relationships, that's where the criticism comes into play. Especially closer relationships, criticism is going to be a part of it. So I want to talk about a term or a concept that I've been just thinking about lately called bubbles of responsibility. Okay, so I like metaphors. You guys probably know this, and I like pictures, and I like shapes and dreams, and I love imagery. So the imagery I want to use is of two people, so person A, person B, and each of them has a bubble around them. Okay, and then in the middle there is a line of conflict, kind of like a line of scrimmage, right? Each person is responsible for their own bubble,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we have a tendency when conflict arises to make it more like a Venn diagram where we share the bubble, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you test boundaries with people. And guys, if you have ever been pissed off in your life, it's because you've either pushed your bubble into somebody else's territory or they've done that to you, right? So I have a question. Let me pull it up. Oh, technology. Okay. So the question, during conflict, copy, paste, and this is going to be multiple choice. Okay. During conflict, what of the following is within your bubble of responsibility? Is it A, compare feelings to test who is more hurt? Sorry, I wish there was a better way for me to do this that was a little bit more fluid. Is it B, seek to understand their why? Okay, I flubbed that up. Okay, so is it A, compare feelings to test who is more hurt in the situation? Is it B, seek to understand their why? Their why. Okay, I mistyped that
Seek
too.
to understand why they're acting out, essentially.
Yeah. So seek to understand their why, essentially. Or is it C, identify and address why you feel a specific way about their actions? So is it A, B, or C?
I kind of feel like it could be a multiple choice. Like I just want to I'm going to cut out A cuz like it doesn't really matter who's more hurt. I could care less about who is hurt more. Who cares? Obviously, we do want to seek to understand why they're acting out. Yes, that's always a good idea. Sometimes that's easier said than done. But it still is important. And then identify and address why you feel a specific way about their actions. That's also important too, because, if I don't understand why this is bothering me, then I can't address it, and then it'll just come back up again some point, and then the cycle continues. Or if they're healthy, eventually, if I don't deal with it for long enough, they'll just kind of shove me away, and I don't want that. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think like it probably is multiple choice.
Well, it's obviously multiple choice. There's
Okay.
multiple options. You mean multiple answer?
Exactly.
Okay. The answer is C, then B.
Ah, okay.
Trick answer. So
Ah!
here's the thing, guys. When we're seeking to resolve conflict, right, and you're looking at your bubble of responsibility, our default, so your inherent protection, right? Your feelings rise up before your thoughts do. That's why biblically we're supposed to take every thought captive. Just because you have a thought doesn't make it true. Just because you have a feeling doesn't make it true. And yet that's what we go to frequently. We think, oh, well, this is natural for me to have this thought, so I need to let it out. But the Bible also says it's not what goes into a man that defiles him, but what comes out, right? Yeah, C and B. See, Seth has it, you know? Um, but the thing is, it feels so good. Like, Brandon, if you and I had an argument about something and you said, Tim, I hate how you always have this air of superiority about you and you think you have it all figured out and whatever. You know, my inclination, my first visceral response would be like, Brandon, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about, man. Why are you attacking me? Well, like, dude, you talk too much. Well, what the heck? Like there's all these things that could come out of, and then you start comparing your situations. You start comparing how you feel. Dude, I'm much more, forget that. I'm much more hurt because you do this, right? And it creates more and more and more and more conflict over something that's just a feeling, right?
Yeah.
So when you're looking at it, the first thing you have to do is realize, okay, well, before I step into their territory and try and help them, right? Before I step over there, I first have to fix what's here. Okay. So I had this guy that I was talking to yesterday, and at their job, they have an issue with their boss. And their boss apparently is just being kind of a turd. He's not responding the way that a boss should and is kind of being overbearing to a degree. And they had this verbal altercation, and he said, I left and I was angry and I felt like I wasn't going to go back, and he's doing this and he's doing this and he's doing this. And then as we're talking, I just started thinking to myself, okay, well, there's got to be a reason why his boss out of nowhere started acting like this, right? There's got to be a reason why. There's always a reason why, right? If it's not something that you did, it's something that, okay, let me readjust that. If it's not something that they're responding to that you did, it's something that's going on in their life that's causing them to respond poorly to you, right? Because hurt people or hurting people
Hurt people.
hurt other people, right? There have been times, like when my mom died and I went to work for a few days, like my mind was not at work. I did not have the capacity to respond in love and to respond in a renewed mind where my feelings weren't coming first with people. Like if a customer came in and said, I'm never coming back. Well, dude, bugger off, because my mom just died. My situation's a lot bigger than yours, so you need to peace out. Like that wasn't my headspace. I needed to figure out what was going on here and in here first. And so in that situation, I challenged the guy, okay, well, why do you think he's upset? Well, I don't know. All I know is that he did this, this, this. I was like, really? Was that his motive? Are you sure? Well, I guess. Oh, okay. Well, why are you guessing that? We have a tendency when we get into conflict to make assumptions about what the other person's motive is because we haven't stopped to ask why. We don't care about why. All that we care about in that moment is about, there's a word there, getting vengeance for ourselves, avenging our feelings. There's a word for that.
Revenge.
Yeah, it's like I want somebody to fix what's in me first. Like it's about me before it's about you. Let's fix how I feel before. But as Christians, we're not really called to do that. I'm thinking, what if Jesus did that? What if Jesus addressed all the pain and all the hurt and all the disgust and all the mockery that he had to go through before he started helping people with their value, before he started telling people, hey, this is who you truly are in the Father, right? Like when the Pharisees came to him, and I'm just thinking about like levels of authority. you know. And if especially if we're in a position of authority with somebody, so if you're here and then your subordinate is here and they come to you with an issue, the last thing you want to do is respond the way that they're responding on their level, and now you're just lateral to one another. Your whole purpose in their life is to lead them to a higher standard, right? And so when I've been in and I referenced this on the other stream, but I had a situation where I was in a similar situation with a subordinate of mine. I was thinking, okay, I'm tempted to go down here because this dude is being a butthole, but I know that I'm supposed to lead him. So let me put my feelings aside, because the way that he's talking to me is making me feel insecure, right? Is it his responsibility that I'm insecure? No.
No. Yeah.
He didn't cause that. Nobody causes insecurity in you. Nobody truly causes insecurity in you. Nobody causes lack of value in you. That's something that you believe about yourself. That's something that you receive about yourself, right? So now I had a friend in my late 20s, early 30s who kept dropping appointments with me, and I took it as an offense. I was like, God, what the heck, man? And whenever they would reach out to me, I was tempted to do the same thing with them, but I'm like, you know what? There's probably a reason for them doing that, and they're not the cause of my insecurity. My insecurity is due to the fact that I've allowed myself to believe that I'm not valuable because of stuff that's happened throughout my life. That is a me issue. That's not their responsibility to solve. But it's quite frequently that we believe that the burden of proof, the burden of resolution, I guess I should say, for things like that is in somebody else's territory. And when you believe that, it is absolutely impossible to ask yourself, why are they responding the way that they are? Right? Because you're blaming them for the way that you feel. And there's no way they can fix that. There's no way they can fix that.
Yeah.
But, Brandon, like, I feel like I spoke directly to your situation. I apologize if I was calling you out in any way.
No, I mean, granted, I was thinking about the situation. There's been one thing that's been looping through my head that, like, it didn't dawn on me until now, but I've been thinking about, like, the main issue that I've been having in my situation has been that everything that I've had going on with this person has been over text. And I could take the time to sit and talk to them in a voice chat, which would then remove the annoyance of having to read through a crap ton of text and streamline the process so I can hear the inflection of their voice and know what they're trying to say and be able to speak more rationally than I can over text. But that's the only thing that's going through my head at this moment as you're talking.
As we're talking about this, like, how does it make you feel going through that whole situation? And you told me that they sent you a message that was kind of confusing and it felt like an attack on you, and especially in a public forum. And it felt as you said, it felt very disrespectful, because you're supposed to be the leadership and they definitely weren't recognizing you as somebody that was to be respected as a leader. Like, how did that make you feel?
I mean, like I said, it was just, I got the point that was trying to be brought across from the beginning, that I made a mistake and I was already repentive of it. It was like, crap, I did not hear what you were trying to say all this time up to this point. But then after correcting the issue, it just kept, this person just kept bringing it up, and kept at least it seemed like accusations more and more on my character. And again, like you said, publicly, like, it wasn't just a direct message, it was on a forum where multiple people can see it, and it's just like, it was confusing and therefore irritating, because I did not realize the issue, and now it is being brought out in front of everybody in this big, long, elaborate, dried out complaint. And it's just like, I didn't know. If I had known and I was specifically ignoring it, then, okay, I could understand that. But I didn't realize where the conflict scheduling the problem was. Like, I had completely different memories of what was said than what was actually said. And so for me, it should have been a situation of like, oh, darn, I'm sorry, I got it wrong multiple times, let me fix it for you, done. Instead, it turned into a, this is constantly an issue, and this is a problem, and I'm angry, and blah blah blah, and it's just like, I don't know what you want from me. like
Did you ask him?
I I don't remember in this moment. Okay, I'm still processing through it. Like, for me to be able to tell you exactly how I felt or whatever, what he said, I'd have to go back and look at it and then read it to you, which I don't want to do on thought rate.
Yeah. But, like, okay, so you tried to resolve it, and it didn't get resolved, and you kept coming back time after time.
No, I kept resolving it. I resolved the issue, but then it wasn't enough.
Apparently not, because it seems like it's still an issue. That's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, so this is frustrating for you, and obviously there's something. It's kind of like you go to the doctor, and every time you go to the doctor, they prescribe you ibuprofen, and ibuprofen's not, fixing the pain or whatever's wrong with you. And it's like, the doctor's like, well, I gave you ibuprofen. What the heck? What more do you want? Well, maybe I need Tylenol. I mean, that's kind of the same thing, but maybe I need a blood transfusion. I don't really know. But the point I'm trying to make is, when it comes to conflict, we also like to pursue resolutions that make sense to us. And we also pursue resolutions that are full of truth sometimes, but the person isn't willing to receive them as that because there's something that's blinding them,
Well, at this moment, I recognize that I need to take some time to figure out, like, sit down in voice and talk about why they're upset rather than constantly having this back and forth in text, because I think that's the main issue, and it will be a lot easier to hear what they're saying rather than to read what they're saying. Because just the format of which they've been using it has been so, at least in my mind, the way that they've been formatting things has been so way too unearthly, like, eloquent. Like, it's just like, this, what is happening? Like, just use real words. Like, stop with this whole treatsy or whatever that you're giving to me. But but I'm recognizing that the issue is obviously, no, it's not that there's a scheduling issue that's the surface issue, but beneath that there's a whole nother issue where they have problems trusting me, I guess, and there's hurt that's involved that's not being specifically said. It's just, so it was the scheduling issue that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And so I do recognize that. I do know that I need to take a moment and listen, and there'll be apologies that I will have to make on the situation, because, again, I know I recognize I reacted out of anger. And I see that now. It's just I can't do anything about it specifically at this exact moment because, we're working through things on a show.
Yeah, well, okay, so let's take a step back and let's go back to addressing the question as it applies to everybody. So we're talking initially about conflict, and you're pissed off, and where do you go with that? And so far we've said, well, you got to define what the relationship means to you.
Yeah.
You have to define the lines of scrimmage, like their bubble and your bubble, and find out what's in your bubble.
Yeah.
Right. And as you're doing that, if you're still super pissed, and like, there have been multiple times where I've gone through things cyclically, and I'm like, well, why am I upset about this? Well, it's because of them. No, it's not because of them. They can't make me feel any sort of way.
Right.
Well, maybe this is insecure. Well, maybe it's their fault. If they hadn't done this, I've never had this issue before. Well, no. Okay. Well, paste.
I mean, if you want to go into thinking about specifically, like, identifying and addressing why you feel a specific way about what's been said, obviously, no, the person's not the problem. I think in this situation, the problem is that I failed, and I feel guilty, and rather than giving me an opportunity to be able to speak about it, it just keeps. I think that I have no opportunity to be able to make up for my failure, because every time I try to, more and more is being heaped onto it. And it's just like, it's just like crap, because I had a third party come in that tried to address me on behalf of the other person, and I about exploded on that person too, because it was like, as they're trying to explain this, I was just like, I've failed, okay? You don't have to tell me for how long I've been failing. I have been failing for 2 months, apparently, in trying to get this conflict resolution thing taken care of, and bringing it back up is making me more and more angry, because it's like, I would like to fix this now. I would like to just get it done and move on, but it keeps being brought up, and so I feel terrible because I failed. And I think that's the main issue with a lot of things. It's just like every time I feel like I fail, it's just like it just adds on to it. It's just like, I have an underground current desire to be perfect and have no issues. And I can't obtain perfection in this earthly body. And so it's frustrating. And so I've been like gradually giving up my imperfections to Jesus and for his ability to correct it rather than my ability to take care of the situation. And there's just more and more things that are out of my control that I have to put into his control. And it's scary and it feels irresponsible. And that's a whole nother story of things. But I'm just thinking about my part in this. Apart from what's they're doing, it's nothing with them. Obviously, they're not responsible for my anger. Yeah, it's because I failed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've had situations like that too. And I think, going to the current question, is it possible that you're blaming them for the way you feel? And, outwardly, it might not seem like that, but when you try to engage with them in any sort of way, or when you try to reconcile something and that tickle of aggravation or anger comes up, it's really easy to think, okay, well, if they weren't present and if this conflict wasn't present, I wouldn't feel this way. I think that's a deception we have to be very careful of. If we were all like Jesus and we had the perspective of the kingdom and just perspective of this person's value is so much more important than any circumstance that can come up, we wouldn't have these issues. If that's the perspective that we truly had. But that's not the case. We're human. And I think as we're navigating something, because the reconciliation doesn't come the way that we want it to come in the time frame we want it to come, it's frustrating, and kind of like your situation. You've tried to reconcile, tried to be humble, and it's not working, right? And it's like, I'm angry at this person because I'm trying to fix it and they freaking, by God, won't let me, And I think being in a place where we're humble and not forgiven is really tough, because it's one thing to forgive yourself and it's one thing to navigate something knowing that the person hasn't forgiven you yet and being okay with that, right? Because that's also an insecurity, guys. When you walk into something and you've done something wrong, but that person is not yet at a place of true reconciliation, if you've done something wrong, well, I mean, there's a consequence for that, and it sucks. You can't force somebody to reconcile. You can't force somebody's feelings to just fix themselves. There's that grieving period that it has to go through, and they have to get that satisfaction of communicating how they feel. Now, at the same time, if they're not being responsible for their bubble, they need to be called out on that in a very loving way, apart from our bubble, right? So going back to the analogy, your bubble, their bubble, line of scrimmage, the only time that you should be able to go over here is when you leave all the stuff that's your responsibility here, right? You should only go into their court when you're truly thinking, okay, my goal is to help them. My goal is to love them. My goal is to show them who they are. Not insist on my way, not keep a record of their wrongs, but say, hey, let me ask you some questions. Why do you feel this way? Right? The question why is so important. I'm just thinking about how Jesus navigated that question, because if Jesus, the Holy Spirit, God, if the Trinity doesn't navigate things through condemnation, then how do they convict us? Right? There's a standard that's set, and when somebody falls short of that standard, you start asking them why, saying, hey, your identity is here, and that's not where you are. Why? You're so much better than that. You're more capable. I believe in you more than that. So, let me just ask you some questions. Dude at work, the way you engage with me is completely different than it used to be, and things just seem kind of weird, and it feels like it. And guys, when you address other people's actions, it's so important to not include assumption, right? You can talk about it, but you have to say, hey, Here's what I think is happening, and I may be completely wrong. And if so, please help me understand. But from what I see, it seems like this is happening, and that's not who I think you are. You are so much better than this. You are not an angry person. You are not somebody who speaks to their subordinates in frustration. You are and you build them up and say, "Hey, so what's going on? Like, what? Why are you responding this way?" When you respond trying to build somebody up and try to lift them up to the other, instead of saying, "Hey, you made me feel this way. Let's talk about that," or "Let's talk about your actions." Right? Anytime you talk about somebody's actions and behaviors and circumstances over their identity, you are going to fail in that relationship. Anytime. Right? If I said, "Brandon, the way you talk to me off stream is not okay," putting up that boundary, there's a different way to do that. It's saying, "Hey, Brandon, when we talk off stream, it feels to me like you're speaking to me like this. You might not be intending to do that, but here's how it feels and here's how it makes me feel. Can you help me understand why you're doing that? Because that's not how our friendship is."
But at the same time, I do feel like it's a step up, though, from what it could be to say this action is not okay. Because I feel like there's a step worse than that I've been guilty of and other people have used against me, where they don't even just say this action, they go and they make assumptions about the entirety of your life. So you are always this, you're never that, why don't you ever blah blah, things like that. You are just lazy, you are procrastinative, and they put a label on you. Like, I feel like it's like that should be the first thing you want to step away from, is by making assumptions about the entirety of their life and their character. When you take a jab, you are closed-minded, you are bigoted, whatever, and you start to make a large overarching statement about who they are. That's really not okay. I feel like if you can get to a place where you're saying, "I feel like this action, what you're doing is this, and this is how it makes me feel," great. But to say at the very least a step down from the worst in this situation, and to say specifically that action is not okay, you're not making an assumption against the entirety of what that person. At least you're saying that this particular action isn't. And so now it's not against their entire character. Not to say that that's perfect. I'm just saying, like, there are worse cat fights I've been in.
Yeah, I remember when I was working at GameStop and I had to write action plans for people, or like to write them up essentially. My boss Rich was actually pretty good about this. He kept coaching me and coaching me and coaching me to refine it so that I was attacking the behavior instead of the person. And it wasn't even really attacking. It was just saying, "Hey, here's the standards and expectations. Here's how these behaviors have not met these standards and expectations. Let's talk about this." Right? And that's really all it is. I mean, that's biblically what it is too. I mean, we talk about this a lot, but let's talk about homosexuality for a second. I mean, biblically, and people are going to argue both sides of this, but I believe that biblically it says that, homosexuality is not something that God approves of, right? And so if the Bible says that and somebody engages in homosexuality, does God write them off? No, he doesn't. Right? He sees it as a sin, but his grace covers that sin. He still sees them as a person. So when he engages them, he doesn't say, "Hey, you are a homosexual." No. He says, "You are my son. You are my daughter. I love you very much. But let's talk about how your behaviors don't line up with your identity."
Yeah.
Right? And that's so crazy. Like, whenever I've had people do that, I don't feel attacked. It feels like they're in my corner on this side of the table with me, instead of across from me. It's like, oh, okay, so they're separating the action. And Brandon, I'm so glad you brought this up because I didn't put it in my notes. They're separating the action that I've taken away, apart from my identity. Therefore, there's no way that I can be attacked. It's something that I did. And honestly, if I'm mature and if I'm humble, I can just look at it and say, well, I am not the sum of my actions anyways. I'm
Yeah.
not the sum of my behaviors. It's just something that I've done. And guys, as I said earlier, if we're supposed to navigate life at an 80% failure rate, only seeing 20% success in an endeavor to mature and actually grow, well, God, that's 80% of our life that needs correction. And so we have to identify, hey, there's 80% of the stuff that I do, excuse me, if I'm really pushing myself, that's not correct and doesn't line up with who God made me to be. So of course it's going to piss people off sometimes. you know?
But yeah, I think it's I think cuz like when you're heated to be able to sit and say this is how I feel, this feels like what you're saying, depending on the circumstance, can be difficult. But what is at least easier is when you feel tempted to make a shot at the entirety of their character and they're always this or never that or whatever. I feel like that you could at least, like, you want to work and start with that and, like, bring it down to what action are they doing that's bothering you specifically, And I think I need to work on specific, like not saying, like, like, I feel like there are situations where an action is wrong, though.
Well, of course. I mean, tons of action. Brandon, if I come over there and stab you in the eye, that is wrong.
Yeah, okay, God. No. Please don't. I like my eyes.
But, I think I'm a visual person. I mean, we talked about this earlier. One thing that I used to do is I used to get on a piece of paper and I would make a T-graph. And for those of you who don't know what a T-graph is, you do know what a T-graph is. But basically, you just make a T. You make two columns. One column is for how I feel. One column is for the action that took place. Separate feeling from action, right? And then, like, I don't know. I referenced this before, how Brandon hit me in the face with his jacket. The action was, I spooked Brandon. 1, 2, he hit me with his jacket. 3, he didn't apologize in the moment. So how did I feel? Well, I felt this way, this way. Okay. Well, he's not responsible for how I feel, but he is responsible for his actions. And when I talked, Brandon, what did I say to you when we went upstairs? Do you remember?
These details escape me after time, but it was just, I remember you inquiring why I did as I did and that if things were okay. And I was like, yeah, I just don't like being spooked, And so it's like, I think I rationalized in my head hitting you because you spooked me different times before and I never really exactly enjoyed it. So it's just like, okay, like the point has to get across at some point or another that I don't like being spooked.
Yeah, and that was the thing. I knew it. I was like, I want to spook him. I think this is fun. I'm going to do this. And, we can give ourselves freedom to do certain things because in our mind, we rationalize that it's okay when, we cross over into somebody else's territory and it's like, ooh, that's not okay here. Well, why not? I'm me. This should be okay. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And like I put up with it for a long time because I don't want to, let that bother me. But it repeatedly did. And so it's like after a while I couldn't hold back anymore. And maybe that's the problem that I'm experiencing with this person. It's just like maybe this person's wanted to be fine with this whole time, but they can't be, and so finally they're just Now granted, they don't have the same level of maturity that I have or the experience, so they've gone into it publicly, but in front of all these different people and just, chewed me out. And maybe they also don't recognize their own anger, but like I recognize I used to hide anger behind different words: annoyed, frustrated, upset, but all that meant angry. And it took a college class to make me realize that I was angry. And I don't think this person has arrived at the place yet where they can see that, like, the evidence is there. They may be calm, cool, and collected, but like they never confronted me like this before. Like, so like if this was something that was like a regular occurrence, okay, I would rationalize, okay, this is just another one of those instances. But that's never happened before, nor has it in that length. And I'm just like, I don't know to what degree you're angry, granted, but this is not normal. And so it's just the anger came from I failed. It came from like you're not seeing what I'm seeing and you keep denying it, and it's like it's blatant enough. I feel like that it should be evidence, but you're just not hearing me, and I felt disrespected. How I felt. Now, regardless if that's why a valid reason, like why, like again, that's something that I could project onto that person, that if they had talked to me differently, I wouldn't feel that way. But that's how I feel. I feel disrespected.
Well, see, here's the thing. We are called to be the light and the salt of the earth through all circumstances. We had people in the Bible that were thrown into fires. There was all sorts of persecution. I mean, Jesus went to a cross. He got whipped. Paul, before he was Paul, he sent Christians in a Colosseum to be eaten by lions. There was so much persecution, but they were still called to be the salt of the earth through the persecution.
Well, he did that?
Huh?
I don't know if did Paul do that? I know that I definitely dragged them out to be persecuted, some to be stoned, like something with an S. Stephen? Is it Stephen? Something like that.
I don't know, but he got tons of Christians killed.
That's true. Basically, yes.
Yeah, but we're called to be the salt of the earth, and God is supposed to be our avenger. And really, if God is supposed to be the number one relationship in somebody's life, and he is ultimately, if God is better at leading them than we could ever be, if he is that, excuse me, we just have to reconcile to the fact that all we can do is stay within our bubble, be responsible for ourselves, and let God love us. And then we're called to do the same. It says, love God with all of our hearts, let him love us, and then love others as we love ourselves. And it's like, okay, well, if God gives me the grace to be an idiot sometimes and to be selfish and in my feelings, I need to give other people that same grace. And also I need to not put my time expectations on them, saying, hey, you need to figure this out within the next week, because I need, by God, I need redemption. I need reconciliation. Well, no, yeah, it sucks when people don't change during the time frames that we want, and sometimes we have to end relationships when people don't stand up to our expectations, or if they don't respect our boundaries. I'll say that better. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can outgrow people, they can outgrow you, and sometimes it is okay for two healthy people, or two people that are allowing themselves the grace to figure stuff out, to go two separate directions. Just because relationships break that's not always a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting circumstance, because in something I feel like you would understand because of being a manager, but like this does fall this person falls under my jurisdiction so long as they remain in the role play that I'm hosting, and a part of my server in general as well. And so it's like, it's not like a matter of like this person just is a random outsider who's doing these things where I can just say sorry, and be able to work with them with a whole lot more grace and space, because they don't have that place. I'm rhyming with not intentionally doing so. They're much more closer into the situation. So it's just like, like, what do I do in that circumstance? It's like the disrespect is not okay. Like, you presented the problem, I fixed the problem. If you're still hurt, we need to work that out. Which is something I actually, again, intend to do after this point. But, I don't know. It's just, how do you handle that? And you're talking about asking questions, and you're talking about, this is what you did, and this is how I feel about the thing that you did. Why did you do this? And to begin to understand, you're talking about seek to understand their why, to why they're acting out. So that's something that I intend to do from this point after this stream. Especially now that we've talked about this, I'm like, why did I not think about this beforehand? Duh. But what do you do about that situation?
I'm just making some notes for myself for later.
Aha.
So I guess, guys, to kind of sum it up, you got to separate your feelings and the actions from identity. Figure out where the boundaries are. Resolve your own responsibilities, and then seek to understand their why. And guys, this is not something that you're going to do fluidly. I mean, as you go through life, you're going to, and I say this because I'm entering a new season of my life. I was just thinking the other day how I'm never going to be one of the attendees at a young adults group ever again, because I'm no longer, like, I'm aging out of being a young adult. I'm never going to be in that position where I'm just receiving in a young adult. Like, I'm entering places where I'm stepping into more and more leadership in all avenues of my life. I have to understand that they're not always going to be people that are going to see eye to eye with me. There's even going to be people that are older than me. They're not going to share the same perspective. And really, if I'm pursuing Jesus the way that I should be letting him work on my heart, resolving my insecurities and all the things that are broken inside of me, and using that as a testimony to help other people do the same thing. I'm not called to have other people be Jesus for me and for other people to be the answer to my problems. That's not what I'm called to do. I am called to show them who Jesus is. It's not me, but Christ in me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if that is true, I have to let Christ be in me first.
Yeah.
But one of the worst things we can do is get down there in the mud and in the muck with somebody instead of saying, hey, I'm going to be responsible for myself, and I'm going to set the example for you. That way, when I come to you and challenge you to do the same thing, you see that I'm already tasking to do it myself.
Yeah. I mean, I think in as much as you are capable of doing so, it's important to continue to work on how you handle the conflict and things of that nature, so that way it becomes easier and easier. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then one last thing. So the title of this cast was "So You're Pissed. What do you do next?" I think once you've gone through all this stuff and you've done all this self-seeking and God help me with myself and God help change those, whatever you do, and you're actually going to take action with that person, whatever you decide to do, I think you need to weigh it against 1 Corinthians 13. Right? Because there's so much like psychotherapy out there for resolving conflict and relationships. And guys, the gospel is really simple. It is so simple. Loving people is so simple. It's 1 Corinthians 13. So, when you set out and you're like, I'm going to do this. Well, okay, ask yourself, as you relate to them, are you keeping a record of their wrongs? Are you saying, well, you've done this, and here's why I'm pissed? Are you puffing yourself up saying that, well, I'm not responsible at all here? Yeah, you are. If there's a relationship and there's conflict, there is something you're responsible for, right? Are you expecting the best for them? Are you having faith in them? Are you hoping for the best? Are you rejoicing? Like, does it make you happy when somebody goes through something? So if you're in a relationship of any kind, a friendship, an acquaintanceship, whatever, and somebody's pissed you off and something bad happens to them or they get their just desserts, does that make you happy? Well, that's not really 1 Corinthians 13.
Yeah.
Like, it's so easy. Like, if you're going to go into something, just write it down on a sheet of paper. Here's what I plan to do. And then just go to 1 Corinthians 13 and go line by line. Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And it's just weigh it against that. You cannot go wrong if that's what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but you definitely, that was an interesting thing about, like, not rejoicing when people who make you angry get hurt. Like, that's definitely a big thing that's close to God's heart, that I know for a fact, because, like, he started working on that area, honestly, starting with presidents I didn't like, to instead pray for their blessing, and that they would be surrounded by wise advisors that would help them make good decisions.
Mhm.
Rather than just wishing death or imprisonment or something of that nature. Like the literal leader of the free country of the United States, like God was like, pray for them. Don't pray
Mhm.
harm. Pray good. Pray blessings. Pray wisdom upon them. Like he had me do that, and then he had me do it again in road rage. When people would do things I would hate, because like I'm more of a rule follower, so when someone flies past me like way above the speed limit, I'm like angry with them or whatever.
Oh,
They
me
make
too.
yeah they make rash
Because it's like if
decisions.
I do that, I always get a ticket
I
every
know.
single
I
time.
know, and look. There's the reason why you pray for them blessings and not cursings, because you have to recognize your sin nature. You're angry because they get away with something you wish you could do.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's true.
yeah, I know, and that's why God's like, you need to pray for them and pray blessings and pray what you want to see happen in their life, rather than you pray for justice, because everyone has sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So the minute you start judging someone for what they did, you have to realize you are just as capable of that, and that you have no right to put that judgment on them, but you should pray blessings over them. And that God started
Mhm.
confronting me about that in my self-righteousness on the road, and it was like, you pray blessings. If they pass you and you don't like what they're doing, you pray for their salvation. You pray for their blessings. You pray for peace. You pray for love in their life. Like, yes, God. And it made me prepared for a really bad situation with a customer not too long after that point, where the customer was like ripping things out of my hands and like wasn't being patient with me whatsoever, and I was not happy with him. And I ended up like, like I made the mistake of telling him, like being a little bit too blunt. I was like, don't get snippy with me. And then of course he erupted in anger and was like, who is your boss? I'm like, I am the manager. And he was like, who is your district manager? I'm like, ugh, I had to give him the name. And he left, and I went, after he left, I went behind, out of the storeroom, like the showroom, whatever, and prayed for him, prayed blessings, prayed for peace, prayed for God to take care of him. And it was the best thing, because he came back into the store. I'm like, oh my God, I'm about ready to get it again. And lo and behold, he was going through a very stressful time, miscommunication with his wife. Other things were going wrong, and because I prayed blessing, like it just was really good for him, and we were able to reconcile, and it was cool after that point. It was great, but sheesh, like
Mhm.
and then I also had to realize, when it came to like the road rage and stuff, I may encounter multiple situations of bad driving, but I'm encountering different people at different times. So even though it's the same instance, it's a different person. And I've had situations where my driving has been terrible, and I'm not a terrible driver. So like I can't make a judgment in that moment like, oh, that's a terrible driver, because I've made those same mistakes on accident. And like, crap, and I know what I'm doing full out, and it's just like, what am I doing getting angry at these people? They could be just like me. Like, they could be really good drivers, and I just happen to witness their bad driving moment. Like, it's just, bless
Yeah, I
those
think,
who persecute you.
yeah. So let's close with this. Whether you believe it or not, the perspective and position we need to have as we just go out into the world is that every single person you come across is somebody who is born of God. Like everybody, even the homeless person, the person that pisses you off, whoever, like every single person you come across is valuable,
Yes.
right? And you should never put whatever the circumstances over them, even if their name is Biden, even if their name is Trump.
Trump.
They are humans. They are people who are born of two people who have value. Like if they died, some people actually believe, well, it'd be better if Trump just died. I wish somebody would take him out. Well, he's a human life, man. I mean, strip him of his name, strip him of all his stupid decisions, take his identity away from his actions and behaviors, his history, and he is just a person. He's just a man on the street, and that's how other people see you too. They see you as a man on the street. They see you as a woman on the street, or non-binary, whatever you associate yourself as, and And when you go through life, you just have to remember this person's valuable.
Yeah.
Why do I think that how I feel is more important than that?
Yeah. Yeah, I can't stress it enough. Like, in the situation that I'm personally working through right now, I still view this person as infinitely valuable. Even though they've made me angry, even though they've said things that I don't understand, and they claim that they don't have a problem, it's all on me, whatever in this moment, it's just, I still love them. And it's like, you cannot judge people, because by the same measure that you judge people, you will be judged. Not to say that you cannot make judgments about situation, like this is not a good situation, that action was not good, but you want to be very careful when you begin to move into the position of a judge, because you do not see their everyday interactions, their thought processes, why they do as they do, and you can tend to maximize their problems and minimize yours. And the next thing you know, you when you get so angry at a person, like people like, oh, this, murdering someone is bad, blah blah blah, and then you are spending all of your time hating someone, like you are a part of the problem. Like this hatred is where murder comes from. Like Jesus literally said that if you hate a brother, you've already committed murder. Just don't. Like, if you have that much hatred, you have to realize that hurting people hurt people, and that you are just as equally capable of the crimes that they're committing. And that is the reason why you're angry with them in the first place, more than likely. I realized if something that someone's doing is bothering me, sometimes it's because I am equally as capable as doing that as they are. And I have to pull myself back, humiliate myself, and realize, okay, I need to pray for them. I need to love them. I need to figure out why they're doing as they're doing, and what is that they're doing that's making me upset, and why, and how, why am I even bothered by this? Like you're talking about C, like what, identifying and addressing why you feel a specific way about their actions. Like, I have to take a step back to think about that, and then to look at things from their perspective, because then that opens up the door for me to then properly speak into their life, properly have conflict resolution, to do so in love and not hate. And where I put their best above how they're acting in the moment, then I can see who God made them to be rather than how they're behaving in this particular moment. And also be able to have a right heart position, that if I made a mistake in the situation, I can apologize for it, rather than to be prideful and have no space to be wrong, which ultimately doesn't heal the situation, because it's all about me. Does that hit well with what you're saying, Tim?
Pretty much.
Cool. Is that all that you have specifically on your heart to share?
Yeah, and I guess the closing thought is just, conflict is normal. Don't run away from it.
Yes.
If you want deeper relationships, engage in conflict, but conflict as a way to resolve and let the other person know that you care about their identity, you care about their value, right? And it's just communication, saying, hey, I know your value is this, I know my value is this, but I feel this way. Can we fix it?
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, this is good. I appreciate this, Tim. Well, I want to thank you guys for watching. It's been a lot of fun. We broadcast every week on Monday, Friday, and Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we will be live again tonight, actually, at 7 p.m., where we'll be praying about specific things that you have on your heart that you would like for us to pray about. Eric and I will be on stream, and we'd love to have you to be there for that. So be there. We'd love to have you. Bring your prayer requests. And if this stream has really been it's blessed you and it's really helped you with stuff, please consider subscribing to us. We have a link at the bottom of the description on both YouTube and Facebook to our Patreon. We've got different levels of which you can subscribe. We are working towards getting to $25,000 per month, so that way you can hire people to help with different positions in Thought Raid, to make the streams better, to increase the quality of what we're presenting to you guys, and to expand so we can reach even more people. So if this has meant a lot to you, please do subscribe. I would like to make this my full-time job and not have to do anything else to distract me from this ministry. So I definitely want to encourage you with that. But other than that, I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will see you again tonight, 7 p.m., very soon. You guys have a good day.